And welcome to Impact 2026, our continuing conversation, where we talk about all different types of topics: current events, politics, race, religion, everything. We do it from a Christian standpoint. I guess you would be if you're talking about religion. But yeah, we talk about everything here. And this is that safe place and opportunity for you to be able to voice your opinion and talk as well. Uh, we might, we want to remind you that there's an opportunity for you to talk. You can type your questions and your comments into the comment section. They will show up on the screen. We will address them as they pop up. That's what we do here. We have a conversation. You don't want to just hear one side. You don't want to hear people talk, and then you don't get to put in your input. So this is your opportunity to put in your input. You can type your questions and your comments right in there. Again, they will come up and we will address them. You can say whatever you want. I agree. I disagree. Hey, why didn't you think about this? I don't like anything you're talking about. Whatever you want to put into the comment section, please feel free to do so. As always, I like to remind everyone of the other offerings that we have here. This is Amani Christian Ministries. What we have on Tuesdays, that's today. Well, it's 8 o'clock now, Eastern Standard Time, for those of you who are joining us live. But it's 7 o'clock on Tuesdays. We have a time of prayer from 7 to 7:45. You can pray with everyone in the ministry. You don't have to pray the whole entire time from 7 to 7:45. You can pray whatever time you can in between there, but be assured that you're praying at a time that everyone in the ministry is also praying. On Thursdays, we have Thursday Thirst. That is our weekly Bible study. That's an opportunity to dive deep into the Bible. Sometimes we don't get that opportunity to really dive into the Word, and Thursday Thirst is an opportunity to do so. On Sundays at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Facebook, YouTube, and live in person, if you would like to be at the address on the screen, we have worship service. And as a time when we get together, we have worship service. And so at 10 o'clock on Sundays, Eastern Standard Time, come on and join us. Also, all of these offerings are, again, on Facebook and YouTube, so you can catch them anytime you want. But we prefer if you catch them live. We prefer on Sundays if you're in person. We prefer on Tuesdays, like right now, if you're able to put in your comments if you want to. But if you don't and you catch it after the fact, and you catch any of these other offerings after the fact, that's fine as well. And so what we like to do is just jump right into the topics that we have on hand. We don't like to dilly-dally around and play around and be like, we want to just jump right into it. However, there are a lot of things going on. One of the things that's going on that people know about across the world is Savannah Guthrie and her mother being maybe kidnapped, is what they're saying. And that's a big national story. Things are going on right now. If you're watching this live and you're on your phone, you can probably see that there's updates going on. They got a video and pictures of people coming out. And really don't have any comment about this other than this is a terrible situation. I would hate to, imagine what kind of pain that people involved feel for Nancy Guthrie, who is missing. Let's also remember that there are many, many people who are missing and who are abducted and who disappear, and they don't get the national coverage. And so let's try the best way that we can not to forget those people either, so that when other people come across the screen, or you kind of see or notice there's a story here or a story there, and different people of different social economic backgrounds, different people of different races, different genders, we got to remember these other people as well. And so nothing against the story that's going on with Nancy Guthrie, nothing against the horrible situation. Please continue to pay attention to there, but just especially those who live in Arizona and who may have some input into what's going on. Also, everyone needs to remember that there are other people, and when you see other people who are in situations and you see other people that disappear, let's make sure that we put some attention towards that as well. All right. There are a lot of other things going on as well. We know that there's still a situation when we're talking about ICE. We're still situations all across the nation when we're talking about immigration and things like that. One of the other things, there is the cardinal, the highest ranking Catholic official has turned over is resigning, is done with, and that's a big process in the Catholic world. There's a lot of things going on. Like, Super Bowl just happened, but it is February, and one of the concentrations of what we're going to talk about, or the concentration of what we're going to talk about, is the fact that it is February. It is Black History Month, and you don't see pretty much any Black history. In the past, we've had it where we focused in on Black history. It's always been a discussion. Oh man, they gave us the shortest month of the year. They gave Black people, just 1 month out of the year. There was a lot of complaints about it. Not like real complaints, but just little casual complaints about the fact that we have this month when Black history should be every day, and all those things are true. However, at the same time, it is great to have a designated time when you should concentrate on something. As much as Black history is just history, it is. You can't have the history of the United States without significantly talking about Black people, or you can, but you're not. Then you have a significantly incomplete history. But it is nice to sit back and have a designated time where you're going to sit and say, "Hey, we need to concentrate a little bit more on the contributions. We need to concentrate a little bit more on things that have happened to people of color, to Black people." And so Black History Month, big deal. Used to be a big deal. A lot of the schools, let's say that, a lot of the schools would have presentations and events, and they would go through and they would talk about a lot of Black history. Of course, they always talked about the most popular one, which was Harriet Tubman, which is Martin Luther King, which was Rosa Parks. Sometimes they would go in and they would talk about some controversial ones when you talk about Malcolm X and some others. But Black history was a time, Black History Month was a time when they would concentrate on. Well, now you don't see that anymore. You look at the schools, they've really pulled back. Might say something here and there, but it's not a concentration on Black History Month. Used to have a lot of stuff on television programs that would come on, and they would talk about and celebrate Black history. Not a big deal anymore. You don't see it as much. You would see it in the stores. You would see it in events going on. They would have Black history events. You don't see any of that. And if you do see it, it's very minor. And why is that? Because the country's changed. Right now, we have a racist in the White House. And I say that with ease because, at this point, that's all the facts have been put on the table and it's factual information. So, if you bristle at that, or if you're like, then I think that you have a problem with just the truth being put out there. It's not up for debate because the president has clarified that this is his stance. And so because we have a racist in the White House and his administration has decided that they're going to be, a racist administration, they've pulled away at a lot of the national parks and a lot of the national organizations. They've pulled away things that reference slavery, things that reference the accomplishments of people of color, especially Black people. The Department of Defense has taken away a lot of the accomplishments of Black people that used to be focused on. When you look at some of the organizations, so for example, the Kennedy Center, which is getting shut down, took out any of the activities where they're supposed to celebrate Black history. A lot of pressure has been put on companies and organizations to, as a part of getting rid of DEI, is also don't celebrate the accomplishments of Black people, Black history. And so, as you can look around and see, there is less and less and less concentration of Black history. So those people who sat back and they were saying, "Oh man, Black history, man, we need to do history every single month." Now you're seeing the results of not having Black history as much, because it's basically it's a footnote now. You just talk about it, but then there's no meat behind it. And so for those people who thought, all right, we don't need Black History Month, then are we doing what you wanted and we're concentrating on it all the time? I can tell you, I don't think that's the case. For the people who sat back and said, well, we had the shortest month, well, now we have no month. But now is the question of, well, what do we do? Unfortunately, my generation, I can talk about my generation. My generation, if you are in your 50s and then you're in your 40s, you're pretty much in my group. I believe that we've dropped the ball a lot because there's really not enough outrage from my generation about what's going on. There is not enough outrage from my generation when it comes down to our children. Making sure that they have the proper education when it comes to Black history, because now it's not what it used to be. And of course, I always concentrate on the fact that one of the main reasons is because a lot of us are not in churches, and that's where a lot of Black history is going on. Because churches are still having Black history programs. Churches are still having Black history moments when they are concentrating and they're showcasing it. So if you are in church, which less and less of my group is in, you're going to still get that history. If your children are in church, they're still going to get that history. Outside of the walls of the church, I don't know where that history is going to come from. And so, to those who are sitting back looking around, are you comfortable? There's not enough outrage. So you're comfortable with that situation. You don't mind the fact that your kids are not learning their history. They're not learning about anybody other than Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. They're not going deep into the catalog of all of the different people who put in work, all of the different people who sacrificed, all the people who may have lost their lives. They're not going into the catalog and seeing all of the things in history and the ways that we added to this country, added to this world, inventions, and adding things to the culture, and different positions that we've held. They're not looking at any of that. They're not being exposed to any of that, and they're being comfortable with it. Because at the end of the day, when you're concentrating on other people to tell you about your history, then you're going to get it from their perspective, if you get any at all. Got a comment. The reality is, as the Black community, we have the responsibility to celebrate our history. We have the responsibility to tell our story. Yes, and that is very true. When you look at other groups, other cultures, some of them, not every culture, but some other cultures and some other groups put in a lot of work into making sure that they teach their history and pass it down. You have a lot of community centers who, on the weekends, and this is a thing that I found out about recently, more recently, when having younger kids, is that you'll see community centers and they'll have the Hispanic class every single month. Well, it won't even be, it'll be a particular Hispanic group. So it'll be like a Cuban American class or whatever group. And it'll be a class that they hold. And the kids will come and they will learn about their heritage and their history. And it'll just be at a community center and they'll do that. Or it'll be at a church and they'll do that. You look at other groups, I'm just pointing out the Hispanic, but there's a lot of other groups of a lot of other cultures and a lot of other people who have cultural centers. There's a lot of cultural centers who are based on these different ethnic groups, and they will have functions and organizations, and they will have meetings, and they will have educational classes where their job is to teach their children about their history. So it doesn't matter that you were born here, you're going to learn about your history. So you're going to go to the cultural center and you're going to learn about, if you're from India, you're going to learn about what it means to be from India. If you're going to go to the cultural center, and if you're from the Philippines and it's the Philippine Cultural Center, you're going to learn about what it means to be a Filipino. You're going to learn about what it means to be whatever you are. I haven't seen that many Black cultural centers. I mean, we have a couple. I have seen a couple. But even more so, they'll have cultural centers for Black people, but it won't be us. It'll be the African Cultural Center. And so then you'll go there and you'll learn what it means to be an African, but that's not for us. That is for Africans who have come over here. And so when you're sitting back looking at Black people, and it is our responsibility to celebrate it, at the end of the day, we don't have that setup that some of these other groups have. Our setup was the church. And I'll go even expound upon it even larger. Our setup was the church. And if you are Muslim, the setup, the mosque or wherever they may meet as well. Those setups were at the religious institutions. That's where we really learned about our culture. That's where we really learned about our history. And so now We don't have that, and people kind of push that, and we're just like, well, yeah, Black people should be teaching ourselves our own, about our own history, but who? And so I say it's still the church's responsibility, and churches are still doing it, but it's our church's responsibility even more because we have less and less people inside of the church that we have to really kind of go out and teach people about our history. We have to hold events to kind of go out in the community and pull these people in because we have so many people. And again, I'm talking about my group because I know my group. 50s, 40s, whatever you want to call it, millennial. I don't know what I don't know what group it is, but whatever my group of people is, we have dropped the ball on our responsibilities when it comes to our kids and making sure that they learn. We learned. We were in. Our parents took us to church. We were in vacation Bible school. We were in after school program at the church. We were in youth group. We learned it all. And now that we've gotten a little older, we've dropped the ball and we're not teaching our kids. And all of the warnings that was given, if you don't know your history, you're gonna repeat it. History repeats itself. It was a guy on television the other day. He swore, he's a businessman. He's like, history does not repeat itself. It's similar, but it doesn't repeat itself. Well, to that man and to everybody else who doesn't think it, look at us now. We had a moment where we had a Black History Month, and we had recognition at different places. We had, if you go to a national park, you would see, well, this was where this particular part of history where Black people were done this, or this is where slaves were, and whatever. All that stuff has been pulled away. So now our month has been turned into almost nothing. Some of our little placards and our recognition at some of the national parks have been taken away. You don't see the schools teaching it anymore like they used to. It looks like it's repeating itself to me. So to that gentleman who thinks that history doesn't repeat itself, I don't know what you're talking about because it looks like it is now. We're going backwards. We're slipping backwards. And so, to that comment, I know that was kind of a ramble, but yeah, I think the responsibility is on the Black community, but the responsibility more so than the Black community is the church. Unless we're going to start opening up Black community centers, which of course we're not going to do as much because we're fighting the government right now. And so anything new would be a battle because you have to go against, the racists in the White House. So anything new would be a battle. But the church is already here. The church doesn't have to be anything new. And the church, of course, the church has power. And so we have the obligation to teach the Black community about the Black community. And so, we're at a point, I think, a crossroads, especially here right now. When you have a situation of where, you have people that feel so comfortable to be racist. Like that the election, and I know I'm getting real political here, but whatever. The election that occurred 2 years ago was not so much about, taxes and affordability and all that kind of stuff. People will lie to you and they will say that. They will lie to themselves or they've been tricked to think it was about that. And they weren't about that. It was about race. It was about race. It was about the ability to minimize and get back at Black and brown people for the advances that we made in 2020 during COVID and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. And we decided that we were going to push ahead and we made advances. And that election was about, we need to take some of this back and we need to put people of color back. They've come up too far, too fast, and we need to put them back to where they need to be. They need to make America what it was again when Black people were in the back seat. They're creeping too far up to the front. You can't be up here. You got you got a little president. You got a little vice president. Y'all creeping up to the front. You're doing too much. You're doing too much. Y'all done made a little money. Now you asking for equal rights. Now you're making it so that people have to respect you in the workplace and can't discriminate against you. Oh no, we can't do all that. And so that's what the election was about. And so that's why we're in this situation right now, where the only place I think that you're going to really get education when it comes to Black history is going to be through the church. And so with that, even though churches are doing Black History programs inside, we got to do stuff where we're going to be able to pull people from outside. We have to figure out a way to make sure that the community gets even more involved, because there's too many of us, too many of my peers, too many people who are around my age who have been looking for a good word, and I don't have a good word, so I'm gonna just kind of keep it plain because that's what we're supposed to do. Too many people around my age who have been sorry when it comes to respecting the fact that God has brought us this far. Uh, Whether you even believe in God or not, the church has brought us this far. Check our history. You know your history. That the church has brought us this far. That people of faith has brought us this far. And for people who know, God brought us this far, and we're not respecting it. So we're not bringing our kids to church to get that same opportunity to have the same kind of upbringing that we had. And so because my group has been sorry about educating down to the next level. Um, we're not bringing our kids to where they need to get their good education at. And so the church has to be extra vigilant and, I don't know, extra enticing to get people, to get my knuckleheaded group of people to bring their kids, to bring themselves into the place where they can learn about Black history. Black history is current. Black history is going on. And so not only do we need to know about what happened in the 60s, not only do we need to know about, the transatlantic slave trade, but we also need to know about what happened in 2020. We also need to know about what happened in 2024 during the elections and what they're trying to take away. So the history needs to be yesterday and today. The history needs to be a long time ago and just a little while ago, because it's an ongoing thing. And I think that's a part of the process that we're missing as well. Now, it's not good enough that you know the previous history, but you need to know what's going on now. It's not good enough. It's not good enough to just know a little bit about the history, because we also need to know some of the strategic game planning that they did back then. When we look at we look at some of the boycotts that went on. Here in Richmond, where we had boycotts at I want to say Tallheimers, but I don't know if that's or Woolworths. I don't know. Where we had boycotts here at the counters because they wouldn't. They decided they don't serve Black people in the stores at the counters. You can't eat at the counter like everybody else. And so we need to be able to look at the history of what was the game plan of how they decided to get this done, using students during the day because other people had to go to work, or using students because, at the end of the day, you got juvenile records versus having a real record. Or when we're looking at, the bus boycotts and how long it took and what was the decision to be made there and why were decisions being made. And so I think a little bit more of that is there's a lot of protests going on right now. There's a lot of things going on right now, but they don't have the effect and the knowledge of what was going on back then. And I think that's some of the problem. One of the reasons I think that we're in this situation where we are, where our protests, let's be real, it's not as effective. It's because we don't have the history behind it. We don't understand what we need to be able to do because we haven't learned what we need to be able to do to really affect some change. We did it with the Target boycott, and I'm always go on that. So to the effect that I have not been to Target since the boycott started. And that's been over a year. And that kind of stuff, it worked, but then you got to look at who put it into place or who started talking about it first. You're looking at people who were steeped in that history. And I think some of the problem is some of these younger groups, when we're talking about protests and we're talking about let's boycott, we're going to do this. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know what we're talking about. We're not going back to the history and really kind of looking at, well, how does an effective boycott work? How does effective protest work? Like, what are we doing? Comment. Unfortunately, there are churches that have caused more damage to the Black community through what they teach and preach. Absolutely. Look, let's keep it plain. Can't trust it. And you can't trust it. And you can't trust just going to some church. I've said this a million times. We don't do that anywhere else. You don't just go to some random doctor, but you don't check and see, all right, did you go to medical school? Or who else do I know that you've gone with? And they try to do that little thing now. They try to sneak you in now where they have these little doctor organizations where you just go to the doctor's office and they'll be like, well, the next doctor there, we'll just let you see. Black people ain't going for that. Like, we don't do that. You go to the barber shop and they just be like, hey man, you can just that barber over there, he ain't got nobody in this seat, just go over to him. Like, no, you don't do that. You go to the one that you know. The one that you know. This dude went to barber college. I can see his little certificate up there. My friend said that he was good. There's some history there. We put in a lot of effort into the things that we do, whether it's our hair, or nails or anything that we do. We got to have some references and we got to make sure that we know what's up. We go to churches and we go in these churches. They're non-denominational. That's okay. That's not a big deal. Pastor them got no kind of formal education. What seminary you went to? So now you ain't no denomination, so we don't know who keeping tracks on you, or who keeps you in line. If you fall out of line, you don't have anybody to look to. But then you ain't go to no school, so I don't know where you're getting your stuff from. You just went to sleep and woke up, and boom, all of a sudden you're a pastor. All of a sudden you're like, yeah, let's just put a church together. So I don't know, who are you responsible to and responsible? Nothing. So we gonna go to somebody with no credentials, really ain't got no recommendation other than a friend and say, oh, that person seemed like they good. We don't really know anything. But we wouldn't do that when it came to our hair. We wouldn't do that when it comes to a lawyer, a doctor, nothing like that. And so the responsibility of the we sit back here and we say, unfortunately, churches have caused a lot of damage. Now, we've caused a lot of damage to ourselves with those churches by being lazy, unfortunately. And we just go into these churches. There's a lot of people who, it's probably a lot of good pastors who have not gone to seminary, and that's cool, that's fine. But even if they haven't gone, you need to make sure that they know what they're talking about. Don't just go somewhere and don't check it out and make sure that it's good. And I think that's the problem that we have. And so yeah, it's a lot of churches out there that got some folk up there who just, it's their weekend job. They just decided we're gonna do church for the weekend and we're just gonna call it what it is. Like, no, y'all need to put in the work. And so yeah, I think those churches have put us on a bad path, put a lot of people in a bad situation. A lot of those churches have been doing some bad teachings. And some of them, at the same time, some of the churches who, you got a pastor who's gone and been educated, or you got one who is a part of a denomination. They still, can send us off on a bad path. So, I do think there's a little bit of diligence that needs to be going on with individuals. We need to make sure that we are getting the word from God. And if you're seeing something that's a direct contradiction, in that, so yes, I totally agree with that comment. But yeah, because our time has pretty much gone away, we have to do our own history. And so for anybody who's watching this, no matter, whatever race you are, Black people, we got to learn our Black history because it's no longer being given to us in schools. We should have been teaching ourselves our history regardless. It's not that that's the only place. All right, it's good for people to teach you history in school. It's good for you to learn history in other places. But you need to learn that on top of what you're being taught by your own people. And I say this, and it's some people, and this is the last comment, because I know some people are going to get mad at me for this one. The reality, I look at it like this. I have a son and I have a daughter. As much as my wife wants to teach my son about how to be a good young man, it only goes so far, because she never has been a man and she will never be a man. And so when it comes to me, I have some things that I have to teach him. And there's some moments where I have to be like, no, I need to talk to him about this. This is a man thing. Or this is how to grow up to be a young man. That's something he needs to learn from me. Or if I wasn't around, it's still some things he would need to learn from another man. Same thing with my daughter. As much as I want to teach her how to be a nice young lady, there's some moments where I have to stop and pause and be like, that's your mother's. Your mom need to come in here and teach you about this. Your mom, I've never been a woman. Your mom is going to teach you how to be a young lady and how to be a woman. I can teach her. It only goes so far. And so as much as I appreciate every other person out here of every other race who tries to teach Black history, all these teachers, these wonderful teachers out here trying to make sure that the little Black girls and little Black boys learn their history, it only can go so far. At some point, we have to step in and teach our own history to our own people. And so it's so important, especially the church. It is so important that we teach our own history. So that first comment, I'm gonna put it right back up here. It is so important that the Black community has to teach their own history. And don't feel bad about it, because a lot of other cultures are doing the same thing. Here in the United States, they have their community centers. They're making sure that their children are learning their history. So we shouldn't feel any kind of way. And I've heard a lot of people say, a lot of politicians and other leaders say, the thing about the United States is that people are supposed to come over here and assimilate. That's crap. Don't ever believe that. If the person is saying that, at the end of the day, you need to run away or you need to confront them on that conversation. Assimilation is not what this country has ever been about. Because if that was the fact, we would all act like the Native Americans. Who are we supposed to be assimilating to? So no, I did not come here to assimilate. No one else has been asked to assimilate for real, except for Black and brown people. And right now they're asking Hispanics to assimilate. So it's not what we're about. What we're about is celebrating our differences and who we are. It's supposed to be that melting pot or whatever. And I don't care if it wasn't the melting pot. At the end of the day, we Black, you brown, you're white. You need to celebrate who you are. All right. With that being said, I'm going to remind people about the other offerings that we have. Thursday, our weekly Bible study. Sunday at 10 o'clock. Oh, sorry. Let's go back to Thursday. Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, weekly Bible study, Facebook and YouTube. Sunday at 10 o'clock, we have worship service. That is at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Facebook, YouTube, and in person. Bring that back up. And also on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock, we have a time of prayer from 7 to 7:45. Please join us for any and all of the offerings that we have available. I want to thank all the comments that came in. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Again, if you want to if you want to be a part of the program, always feel free to type your comments and your questions into the comment section. And if you ever want to just contact us because you want to be on the program or anything like that, feel free. I'll put it back up. You can hit us at the email address. You can call and leave us a message, whatever you want to do. Thank you, everybody, and have a good one.